Our guest today, Dr. Stephen Thomas, is a professor at the Smith School of Business at Queen's University in Ontario, Canada.
You're listening to the Big Data Beard.
All right, so Stephen, welcome to the show. We're really glad to have you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
This is great. We're really looking forward to this episode. Do us a favor, just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you do, and kind of what you focus on.
Yeah, so I work at the Smith School of Business at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, and I am the director of two master's programs there. One is on analytics and one is on AI. I also teach in both of the programs in big data, machine learning, and text analytics.
That's really cool. How long have you been with Queen's University?
About 5 years now. So I started off in operations research at Raytheon Missile Systems down in Tucson, Arizona. And then I went and did my PhD in computer science at Queen's. And then I did a couple startups. And then while I was doing the startups, I started teaching at Queen's at Smith School of Business. And that kind of ramped up. And now that's my full-time gig.
Oh, really cool. So the Masters of Management and Analytics has been around for a little bit now, right?
That's right.
But the new one that's just coming out or has just came out within the Smith College of Business is this Masters of Management and AI. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so to really understand that, let me talk a little bit about the analytics degree. So that's been going on for about 5 years, and we started at a small class size of about 50 students. And since then, it's grown. We kind of invented the idea of an MMA degree, but now 3 other schools offer the exact same degree. So people are starting to recognize the title, kind of like an MBA, except it's for analytics. And so now we're graduating 220 students a year in that program. And we have a really good board, advisory board for that program. And at our meeting last November, they said the MMA is great, keep doing it. But what we're starting to see is a shortage of managers who understand AI specifically. So we think you guys should launch a program very similar to the MMA, but focusing more on AI. So that's where we got the original idea, and it's been pedal to the metal since then.
And is this MMAI?
MMAI. That's
MMAI.
Right.
And you talked a little bit about managers and having to fill the void with this skill set within the management world. Is that who you're targeting, or who are you targeting for this degree and this program?
Yeah, so it's somewhere between a Master's of Science in Computer Science and an MBA. So we're right in the middle. We're not trying to build programmers, developers who are going to write a bunch of C++ and Python code. We're also not building MBAs who can, just kind of shuffle around some of the words but not really understand it. We're building a student. We're training students to understand the models, do some coding, do the analytics themselves, but more importantly, see how that fits into the business strategy, how to actually implement the change, how to communicate it to executives and to technical workers. So we're trying to fill the gap between the tech workforce and the executives.
So we see that, over the last, call it 2 to 3 years, the terms analytics, big data, AI, they've almost, the lines have grayed between them, right? And it's hard oftentimes for anybody that's in the field or looking into the field from the outside. It's hard to understand the difference between those. And so I feel like a lot of times people use AI interchangeably, that it's basically just the next evolution of analytics. Is that the same thing with the program? Like, are the programs almost identical, that they're pretty similar, or is there really differences between your master's in analytics versus the master's in AI?
That's a great question, and that's something I've thought a lot about, and something that potential students ask when they call us. First thing they ask is, what's the difference between the programs? In my mind, analytics is a process to turn data into decisions. And in that process, you have a lot of tools at your disposal. Simple statistics, visualization, optimization, simulations, all kinds of stuff. Another new tool at their disposal are AI techniques, and in particular, machine learning. So supervised machine learning, unsupervised reinforcement learning, all of these can be used during the analytics process. So the difference between the two programs is the MMA is a broader, more general degree where they're going to learn about simulation, optimization, big data, all these things, and a little bit of AI. Where the MMAI degree is more focused on just the machine learning parts and how to use those effectively in the analytics process. So they learn less about simulation, optimization, visualization, big data, but they learn more about the internal workings of a supervised machine learning model, for example.
Oh, okay. So, and I think one of the important parts here is, especially within the management function, being able to have that understanding and foundation within this whole world helps you make better decisions and be a better leader. So you really do need to have some of that technical acumen skill still. What are you seeing as far as like the current or the enrollment or the anticipated enrollment for current managers, aspiring managers? Kind of what's that mix?
Yeah. So we've done the analytics on that. So we have about 50-50 split actually, amazingly, of managers who have had 8 years or more experience managing people. And the other 50% are younger, a little bit more technical, not as much management experience, but want to go that direction.
And does this degree have management-related courses also woven into it, not just some of the AI?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a business school. So we have an intro to management course. We have a marketing analytics course, financial analytics, AI. So they learn the different business functions. About half the courses are more raw technical courses, and about half are more business courses, or how to apply what you learned to this business function or to this industry. There's also a capstone project where they go in work with a partner company of ours for 4 months and do a whole project from start to finish, the business side and the tech side.
So one of the things I've been seeing, and even at this Disney Analytics conference, we see is this this blending of the social sciences and big data and AI. I mean, we heard Stephen Dubner talk about, how data is so critically important, but that what we're trying to do with analytics is incentivize some action so many times, right? That's a lot of what we're trying to do. So I'm curious, as a business school, do you see in the future more of a cross-study potential for like people to understand the scientific process and even understand some of the psychology that goes into incentivization using these big data technologies?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think you're right. Because you can have the data, you can have the models make predictions, but I think at the end of the day, you need a human to interpret those predictions and decide whether it's good enough or whether you want to dive deeper. So yes, we do have some researchers in consumer behavior, for example, within the school. And I think the more we integrate, the heavy tech side, the strategy side, and consumer behavior side, the better overall it's going to be.
Yeah, and so what are some of the technologies that you're using within this program for some more of the technical aspects of the program? Are you using specific technologies or tools to train?
Well, so that's up to each individual instructor. But for example, I use R in our studio. We have a little node, a little 6-node cluster, and we have our studio. We have SAS Viya. We have Jupyter notebooks, and so the students get access to that. Other professors use Python, in Jupyter. In the big data course, we use Spark. So we have a little Spark cluster going. We're trying to partner with an Azure or an AWS or something like that. So far, there's been a lot of red tape. We kind of built our own. But yeah, so for programming, it's mostly R, Python, a little bit of SAS in there as well. And for infrastructure, it's RStudio, Jupyter Hub, SAS Viya.
So where can people go to learn more about this course and get more information and hopefully apply?
Yeah, our website has all the information, Smith School of Business at Queen's University. We don't have any application deadlines. It's more first come, first serve. The MMAI program starts every September. In fact, we're launching the first cohort in 1 week from today, September 4th. And the MMA has 2 starting dates, one in January, one in June.
And there are year-long courses. There are year-long programs.
12-month programs while you work, but full-time. So they're offered nights and weekends in Toronto. And most students continue to work while they take the program, although we tell them to expect a good 30 extra hours a week of work.
So in addition to talking about the program, you're also here at Disney to give a session. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you're going to be speaking about?
Yeah, so my talk is titled AI and Analytics for Business. And the goal of the talk is kind of twofold. One is to describe the difference between analytics and AI, kind of like what we just did now. And then the second is just to provide a lot of real-world use case examples of companies who have used AI in their analytics process and what it meant to them on the bottom line.
So I want to jump in and ask, because we talked about that the terms are interchangeable, but I wanted maybe if you could share your view or your definition of the differences between, not between big data, but between AI, machine learning, and deep learning. Those three seem to be used very interchangeably, and I don't think that's accurate. And I was wondering from your perspective if you would share your definition of how you classify one versus the other.
Yeah, that's a great question. So to me, AI is the umbrella term with very loose, slippery boundaries. People, especially marketers, can say anything's AI.
Not marketers. They'd never do that.
Microsoft Excel now with AI has a sum function.
For $1,000 more.
No, so AI is the overall umbrella term. And to me, all it means is there's data being used to build models to make decisions as opposed to human programmers typing out a bunch of if, then, else statements. So that's AI. Machine learning, well, let me back up. AI encompasses a lot of broad disciplines like robotics, knowledge representation, natural language processing, automation and control, but also machine learning. So machine learning is one piece of AI. And the machine learning is what I was just describing as AI. So I think I fuzzied the water a little bit. Machine learning is when a program is written, quote unquote, automatically by learning patterns from data, as opposed to a human typing out if, then, else statements. AI, I guess, let me amend that definition. AI is any time a program tries to emulate human behavior or do something a human would want to do. So that includes building a robot to go into a fire and put it out. Anything like that. Where machine learning is, it's based on data. And then deep learning is a subset of machine learning. And the lines are fuzzy there as well, but basically I view it as supervised learning, that you have historical labeled training data, and you're using neural networks. Neural network is just a type of learning algorithm. And in particular, if your neural network has a lot of layers, you say it's a deep neural network. And it's very computationally expensive to train these models. So that's why it's kind of special. So people just call it deep learning, but really it's supervised learning with a neural network that has many layers.
And that neural network, is that a way of allowing the machine to abstract the features that you need? Whereas with machine learning, you have to do more feature engineering, right? You have to actually determine what are the features I'm going to apply to my model. So that neural network gives the machine the ability to do that. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah. So with the neural network, one of the great pieces or features of that model is exactly right, what you just said. You have to do less feature engineering. You just kind of throw it all the raw data, and given enough training data, enough layers, enough neurons, it will find kind of its own features underneath the hood. Whereas with a traditional decision tree or k-nearest neighbors model, a human being spends a lot of time carefully calculating features and doing engineering up front before training the model. Now that's changing a little bit with auto ML techniques that you might have heard about as well. But basically, neural network does allow a little bit more, or it handles raw data a little bit better.
So awesome. And so auto ML, that's not something that I'm too familiar with. Can you unpack that a little bit more?
Yes. So traditionally, humans have spent a lot of time up front on the data cleaning, feature engineering aspect. So, you have date of birth, let's say, on your customers, but what you really want is age. So you create a new column, which is just now minus date of birth, something like that. And this is a very expensive, laborious process. I've done it a lot in my life, where you engineer a feature, you train the model, you check how well it did, you get some accuracy score, 72%. You spend a couple more days, you get it up to 74%, whatever. It's not scientific. It's a lot of guesswork, a lot of trial and error, test and learn. AutoML basically just automates that process by trying a million things for you and telling you which one works best. Basically, I don't want to minimize it because it's very clever, but it'll just engineer a million features, just kind of try a bunch of random features. Some of them are stupid, some of them work really well. And so it just does that all night while you're sleeping. And then when you wake up, it says, okay, these features worked really well, and the best performance I got was 78%.
So AutoML tools feel like, well, one is you could argue maybe it's creating like citizen data scientists, where it's making the ML process that has made, that's can be challenging, obviously, as you've well stated and you have experience dealing with. Would you argue that that's even more of the reason why it's important for managers to have and business stakeholders to have context of how that process, even though it's being automated, but understanding the how it's being automated and covers and what it is? Would you say that that's why it's so important for managers to understand this AI world? Because it feels like we may have fewer people interacting, fewer data scientists for automating that process. It feels like managers are going to be handed new tools that are going to be harder to make sense of.
Exactly. Yes. So a manager who doesn't really understand how the models are working, they really only have a choice to accept the decision or the model's prediction or reject it, with no understanding of how it came to be or whether it's good enough or we could do better. That's partly why the program exists. And yeah, as to whether data scientists will disappear thanks to AutoML, maybe a little bit, but I think that data scientists are just going to spend their time doing more interesting work or doing more work in the same amount of time. But I don't think AutoML will replace very many humans. It'll just make humans' jobs better.
So I want to get back to your session. And I know you talked about in your session, you tell some success stories and different stories of how customers are using AI for good. What's your favorite story that you're going to talk about? Can you give us a preview?
Yeah, one I really like is in Singapore, there's this hospital, and they have this ICU unit, or an NICU unit for infants, basically. And what they saw was, if an infant in the NICU gets the flu, it's almost always devastating. And by the time the doctors can detect symptoms of the flu, it's too late. But what they realized they had all this biometric sensor data on these patients while they're still alive. So, things like temperature, heart rate, pulse, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And they also know which patients ended up getting the flu and which ones did not. So they had this amazing historical labeled training data. So what they did is they built a model to predict whether someone is going to get the flu in the next 24 hours or not, given their current biometric stats. And it worked amazingly well. But the most important part about it was it allowed enough time for the doctors to take corrective action, avoid the flu altogether, and keep the patients alive. So this one prediction model has saved hundreds of lives a year just at this one hospital. And that's just a feel-good story.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a feel-good story, but I think Singapore is actually applying that to other things now. So I was there a few weeks ago, and as I walked off the plane, they actually were taking my biometric, data and seeing if what my temperature was, and that might have been whether or not I was going to get the flu or bring some type of flu-like, disease into Singapore. So that's interesting. Maybe they're using it a couple different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Singapore.
Go.
I was just going to say Singapore is very forward-looking and huge fans of analytics and AI, and I think their government's taking them in the right direction.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I'm hopeful for, is that you said earlier that AI can make humans' lives better. And I think that's the crux of it, right? If we can automate the process, this AutoML technology ideas, that's really cool, because if we can speed up the time to value and automate those labor-intensive functions like that, data scientists, they always say like 80% of a data scientist's job is data wrangling, curation, like that data prep. If we can automate that, then we can get to more of these stories.
Exactly.
I wonder, like, from your perspective, like, are there other decision support areas that you think are maybe not as cool as saving babies, but like other examples that you think are places where this AI in business can really have big impacts?
The big one for business is marketing. So knowing which products to offer customers, for example. So a recommender system like Amazon has, but for every business. We were just listening to the Salesforce keynote. They're talking about building that in with their Einstein AI right into Salesforce. That's huge. Another one is knowing which customers are unhappy, unsatisfied, likely to leave. So having a really good customer churn model, or even a customer lifetime value model. So you know which customers are your top customers, which ones are going to spend the most. You want to incentivize them to stay. So things like that, a lot around the marketing function. Also, you'd think, when you call into a customer service for any, I do it 10 times a month, it seems like, but you think they would know everything about you, what last time you called was and what products you have, but really they don't. I've worked with some call center and it's a disaster. Data silos, they don't have a common customer ID with the rest of the business, whatever. But that's another, and a lot of that's not even AI or analytics, that's just data integration. But having a customer 360 view when someone calls in addition to a little bit of analytics and AI, like the probability of leaving if they don't have this issue resolved today, or the sentiment of their last 5 calls on average, things like this, or the probability that they'll accept an offer that you're about to give them, that a huge game changer.
Yeah. So you talked about the data silos and getting all your data so you can actually apply it to your AI models. Do you see that being the biggest challenge and roadblock for organizations?
At the moment, yes, that is by far one of the biggest challenges, because we'll have a initial meeting. We work with a lot of industry partners, and we'll go on the whiteboard and come up with a brilliant solution. And then 6 months later, despite a lot of heroic efforts by a lot of people, we haven't made any progress. Why? Because silos, usernames, VPN access, no shared key between the tables. Can't access that data in its raw form, only in aggregate form. Simple things like that have been around for 30 years. They still exist, unfortunately. So that's, if that could magically go away, then companies could start adopting machine learning AI techniques much, much faster.
Yeah, and we see organizations can't go from 0 to 60 overnight. They can't just go from their current data warehouse, analytics strategy to being able to do these advanced analytics. There actually is a gradual, life cycle, maturity cycle that you have to go through. And do you see as part of your course even, how do you teach that to the aspiring or will-be managers so they can help lead their organizations through this?
Yes, and a lot of that is a human problem.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have your IT team have the grand vision of a enterprise data lake running Hadoop or whatever you want, and it makes so much sense, both technically and from a business point of view, to invest heavily in that right now. But then you go try to get funding from a senior VP who doesn't understand analytics or data that well, and they think, that's a big investment. Everything's working fine as is. Let's just hire some more programmers and just patch it up and it'll work. So that's kind of one of the benefits of getting this cross between a management degree and an analytics degree is that you can influence change at the upper level. Because until you get change at the senior leadership of the company, or until you get support, I should say, and passion from them, it's not actually going to happen. And you're going to end up with half a data lake that nobody uses. So now you have 2 systems. You got your enterprise data warehouse that you've had for 30 years, half a data lake, and everyone's even more confused than when they started.
Yeah, I think it's understanding as well. Most of the CEOs out there and CIOs are saying AI this, machine learning. I think the number one buzzword of 2017 was actually AI for the first time in 4 years. It's normally been the cloud. So we're seeing CEOs mention AI a lot in their financial earnings and their comments during these quarterly reports. That's the passion. That's at least acknowledging that this is around. And to your point, it's a buzzword still, and we're in that buzzword phase. I think it's the translation to leadership at the senior level to action all the way down through the organization. That's still that major roadblock in organizations being successful.
Exactly. I mean, it's easy to say we're doing AI in the cloud with our big data. But yeah, very few C-levels actually know what any of that means.
So I'm curious because one of the things that we hear is, like anything that goes through this hype cycle where you get to this, it's crazy hyped and everybody talks about it, and there's this trough of disillusionment where we're no longer excited about it because we got excited and we didn't see any return. And many industry analysts talk about the importance of big data and now AI being successful is having well-defined use cases. And one of the challenges I see, and I'm curious about how your program may help, is helping managers bridge the gap between understanding what can be done and what should be done, and how do you prioritize those projects? Because I see managers, leaders in many organizations struggling with that use case definition. And as you said, it is a people problem, but you only have so many people, so much time, and so much tech. How are you guys helping organizations identify those use cases, both as the university but also as this program?
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. So throughout the program, we try to instill the mindset of not shooting for the moon and taking a more realistic and practical approach. So finding a process, for example, that is repetitive, there's a lot of data, and a machine can do it well. Start with that. Don't redefine your entire business model and just put AI powered whatever, because that's never going to work. Also, just to build on small successes, because each small success means that you've integrated some databases together, and it means you've established a team that can actually do this, and it means that you can actually point to something to senior leadership of, look, we saved $2 million last year, and so not only are you getting momentum technically, but also from a leadership and kind of from person or human level, they'll say, yeah, this can work. So that is great advice, is to just not to focus, to have well-defined use cases, and to succeed and actually finish the projects.
Yeah, that's always important as well. So we talked about this. There's this data scientist skills gap right now. A lot of people want to do machine learning and AI. Very few skilled data scientists are out there. I know your course is helping bridge the gap from a management perspective. What do you think, high schools, middle schools, where do you think we need to start developing some type of curriculum to help, fill in that void between the skills gap and the want to do AI and ML?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, a lot of students fear math and by proxy computer science. And I think that's a shame, because they both can be fun, even if you're not a nerd, even if you're a jock or a chess player or a musician. And I think that's what needs to change, is kind of this fear. Now, how to change that, I don't know if I'm the best person to speak to that, but I think a lot of math professors take a very mechanical approach of how to solve a formula, or they don't actually tell you what you can do with math. Math is really just a tool to solve problems. So I think we are making some progress with some very innovative apps and games to kind of expose students at a younger age. I don't know if that'll have actually move the needle at all, but hopefully it will. Also, yeah, it's just kind of how I think middle school and high school teachers in math approach teaching math. So
it's almost like they need that. We always see, and we're talking to enterprises, and if you're trying to sell a technology and get somebody to buy into it, or a project, you almost always start with like the art of the possible, right? You get people excited about the vision. So maybe that's an idea. Maybe we need to start teaching teachers that early in education, you give kids this art of the possible education. Like, look what could be done. I love that idea. That's a great idea.
And get them excited about what they can do 10, 15 years down the road, and then back them into it. Or just start showing them some of the paychecks even. Maybe that might help as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Just get away from worksheets doing long division.
We've learned a lot from our guests about big data, but now it's time to get a bit personal in a segment we like to call Rapid Fire. Pew, pew.
What year do you think Skynet will go online?
2,200.
I like it. Okay. What is the last great book that you read that you'd recommend to us?
Fiction or nonfiction?
It doesn't matter. Whatever book you found most interesting.
I just read The Unofficial Guide to Disney 2017.
Oh.
The writers are amazing, actually.
Excellent.
No,
All right.
but more serious answer. I don't know if you know Tom Davenport. He's a big analytics guy. He wrote a book called Big Data at Work.
Okay.
Just read it. It's a couple years old, and I'm ashamed that I haven't read it till now, but it was great.
Okay. Excellent. What genre of music are you currently jamming to?
I like electronica.
Electronica. Excellent. What piece of technology is currently making your life worse?
Any time a technology makes my life worse, I get rid of it. So nothing's really
Good.
making
That's
my
a
life
good
too
rule
much.
of thumb.
So I don't know.
Stay lean. Okay.
I would say a lack of a good scheduling app to help me, schedule a meeting with somebody.
It is.
That takes way too long.
It is. I agree 100%. What is your personal biggest money pit right now?
My wife.
I hope she's not listening. I'm kidding. Are you going anywhere really interesting soon?
I'm going to the Bay Area to talk about the new program in a couple months.
Love the Bay. Now, fun one because we're at the Disney Data Analytics Conference. We wanted to ask you, what is your favorite Disney character?
C-3PO.
Oh, good choice. All right. Now, where can we find you on social media?
I have a GitHub page, Step Tom. I have a LinkedIn page. I don't use Facebook or Twitter or Instagram at all. I used to, but I spent way too much time. And like I said, if something's not working for me, I get rid of it. I needed to focus.
That's excellent. Well, hey, it's been super great to have you on. We appreciate you joining us here at the Disney Data Analytics Conference, and we'll make sure everybody is able to find you and the awesome things that Queens is doing to advance AI. So thank you for being on the Big Data Beard podcast.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.
Can I do the podcast? Thanks for listening to the Big Data Beard podcast.